Hello everybody at the Eco Centre in Derbyshire for today's Geography of the Senses seminar. Many apologies for not being there in person, and big thanks to Alistair for inviting me to speak via video presentation today. Just to introduce myself, I'm TullisRennie. I was brought up in Wirksworth, but now I live in Belfast and I'm studying at SARC, the Sonic Arts Research Centre at Queen's University. And I'm a PhD student. My research is a creative practice. I'm a composer. I write mainly electronic and experimental music. And my specific research question is about bringing an ethnographic methodology to composition. However, today I'm going to be talking within this idea of the geography of the senses about listening. I'm focusing on sound and listening as a way of engaging with the environment and our surroundings. I'll mainly talk about sort of artistic or creative applications of this. That sort of fits with how I think about listening and sound. I'll also talk a little bit about the difference between listening and hearing, and sort of why it's important to me to listen. I thought I would just begin with a little step back in time. Max Neuhaus was a composer in the 1960s. He was beginning to be active, and he was sort of affiliated with some of the American experimentalists, John Cage and the Fluxus movement. And he composed, I guess in inverted commas, this piece called Listen. And it's quite a close relative, actually, of the 4 minutes and 33 by John Cage, the famous silent piece. Now, John Cage, sort of by way of not providing any sound in the musical performance, he invited his audience to listen to sort of extra musical sounds around them, or to be more attentive to their sound environment, essentially, within the concert hall. Now, Neuhaus took this one step further. So an audience would arrive at a concert hall sort of expecting a conventional performance or a lecture, but they were then put on a bus and their hands were stamped with the word listen, and they were taken to and around an existing sound environment. The first examples of this were a power station and an underground railway system. And the poster you can see there is from a little bit later, from 1976, when Neuhaus took his audience underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. I also thought I would just briefly mention the World Soundscape Project, which was based in Vancouver, and as you can see from the photo, in the 1970s. It was set up by R. Murray Schafer, who's on the far left. And their idea was, quote, to find solutions for an ecologically balanced soundscape, where the relationship between the human community and its sonic environment is in harmony. So they had this idea about acoustic ecology and kind of preserving the sound environment through recording, through audio recordings. And they sort of did education workshops about soundscape and about noise pollution. They were recording and cataloguing soundscapes and sort of what they called sound marks, the kind of distinctive sound of a certain place, and also preserving kind of dying sounds and sound environments. That then led to composers working with this on magnetic tape, working with this recorded sound as manipulable musical material in a studio, and that was called, well, that sort of developed as soundscape composition. And the man who is second from the right at the back is Barry Truax, who's quite a famous practitioner still today of soundscape composition. So I just thought I would touch on these two examples from history to show that sort of the contemplating the sound environment and using that as an artistic tool has been an idea that's been around for quite a while. In terms of today's seminar, when Alistair and the other people organising the event were talking with me about the idea of the geography of the senses. Obviously, one of those senses is the sense of hearing, and so I know there's going to be a walk this afternoon when you'll be able to consider the ideas and sort of apply them practically. So certainly from my point of view, I would invite you to listen to your place. And I guess here it's worth pointing out that listening, as distinct from hearing, is a kind of active, engaged phenomena, whereas hearing is passive and continuous. Nobody has earlids, so you're constantly hearing, but are you always listening? Perhaps not. And I think in a sort of increasingly visually dominated world, the importance of focusing on sound is becoming more and more important, certainly to me. And that's shown in this book, wonderful book called On Listening, which is a collection of, you can see there, 40 different writers, and edited by Angus Carlyle and Kathy Lane. They're really from all sorts of different backgrounds and disciplines, from anthropology, you can see here, through to geography, sociology, community activism, art history, various different sonic arts. So I thought I would just pick out a few quotes from this book to add food for thought for the discussion, and then also the walk this afternoon. So firstly, Peter Cusack. I'm just going to read this out to give you a little bit of time to digest it. He presents the idea that all sound, including non-speech, gives information about places and events, and that listening provides valuable insights different from, yet complementary to, visual images and language. So within the sort of contemplation of the various senses, if you focus on listening, I think Cusack is saying that perhaps other equally important but sometimes different information will appear. Moving on to Mary Keiter, she says, listenings have dispositions. Our attention shifts between sound events. We adopt different listening modes in order to make sense of reactions, of the connotations, of the causalities, of the functions and the semantics. Simultaneously, we're engaging the cognitive process of imagining past sounds while casually listening to ongoing ones, and we are making aesthetic judgments on the whole concoction. So to me that sort of says, asks the question, what emotional content does the soundscape inspire in you? It's not simply describing what you hear, but sort of realizing that you bring a kind of preconception to that soundscape and that you piece together your own reading of the sound environment around you. And to sort of follow that on, Michael Gallagher says, maybe sound doesn't have to mean anything. Maybe meaning is as much something we bring to sound as something sound brings to us. So I guess I would invite you to have a go at contemplating your sound environment and to try and describe that and to share it with other people on the walk. Just briefly, I'll mention a piece of creative work that I'm currently engaged in, which is sort of connected with that, called Sound Diaries. It's a collaboration with my colleague Isabel Anderson, and so this work documents sounds and thoughts through field recordings and spoken word. And so it tends to be one of us in a place kind of documenting that sound environment, but also talking about what it makes us feel or what our related thoughts are to that place. And so it kind of opens up a dialogue between the listener and the recordist and the place itself. And so there's about 5 or 6 of those already archived on her website, which is speakingmaps.co.uk, and then there's a section called Sound Diaries which you can click on. So that brings me to the end of my short presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day and some stimulating discussion. I'm really sorry I'm not there to take a part, Look forward to hearing the results, and if you would like to be in contact at all, then you can do so either on email, or I'm on Twitter, or there's my website with a number of different bits of work that I'm previously made or currently engaged with. Okay, thank you very much.